everyone. Good morning and welcome to WishwaTalks. My name is Prerna. Thank you all for attending today's event. For those of you who have attended a WishwaTalks before, a warm welcome back. And for those of you who are joining us for the first time, here's a little bit about us. WishwaTalks is an initiative by Wishwa. WishwaTalks are a series of weekly webinars hosted every Saturday that are focused on gaining in-depth knowledge from the experts on a wide range of topics that are pertinent to the current context. For today's sessions, we have partnered along with Roshni Trust, a Hyderabad-based NGO fighting mental health stigma and has been offering free and confidential emotional support to people. Roshni has been rolling out an initiative to conduct free psychiatric camps for the underprivileged since 2014. Today, we are honored to have two great women who are the social change makers and are serving the society in their dignified fields, respectively. Without further ado, I would like to invite our speakers, Ms. Shilpavalli and Ms. Devika Rani. Ms. Shilpavalli is the first woman Deputy Commissioner of Police of Madhapur. She has always been focused on encouraging women to open up against online harassment and cyber fraud. Vizag-born Shilpavalli has been in the police department for over 9 years. Ms. Devika Rani, Director of Amrita Foundation Society, an NGO on substance use and prevention and treatment, is also an international certified addiction professional. She has also been a resource person for Nasha Mukt Bharat campaign, a pan-India initiative taken by Government of India on substance use prevention. Before we get started, I would like to inform our audience that Ms. Shilpavalli and Ms. Devika will be taking questions from you after our main talk. So please leave your questions in the chat box or raise a hand and we will allow you to ask your questions in person. Now, without further ado, if I may invite our speakers to please start today's WishwaTalks. Devika ma'am and Shilpavalli ma'am.
Thank you, Prerna. Thank you so much. Good morning to one and all. Today I'll be focusing on drug abuse problem. What are the reasons and how it affects the brain and what are the consequences one face. So I'll do with my presentation. Drug-free life rocks is what is the title I have given. So you all know what are drugs, right? So any chemical compound which is taken or administered and it brings about some kind of change in our body and mind. Okay, usually, there are legal and illegal drugs we talk about, the drugs which we take for the medical reasons, but there are illicit drugs or illegal drugs that is also consumed by a lot of people. So here, whenever anybody uses drugs in a prolonged period of time, it causes a lot of physical and psychological changes and it can lead to dependence. And we also see a lot of overdose of such kind of substances lead to death. So when I was talking about legal illicit drugs, here alcohol, tobacco, these are the gateway of drugs. And you also see, and there is a huge, raise in this prescription drugs or the over-counter drugs these days we are seeing. The global statistics on par with the Indian population also getting succumbed to this kind of prescription drug abuse because of the easy availability of it. And this is where we are talking about, as the drug control authority have no control over the, the medication which is being given without prescription. And that is where it's been abused by the student community at large. And the illicit drugs, you can see cocaine, you might be hearing a lot of names these days in the newspapers, MDMA, that is a crystal methamphetamine, heroin, cannabis or marijuana, the common word which is used is ganja, along with the prescription drugs, which are not prescribed to you, that becomes illicit. And though drugs may look different, as in the first slide, you have seen varieties of drugs, but all these are mood-changing chemicals. That's why we call psychoactive substances. And it affects the way we think, the way we feel and behave. So you see a person abusing drugs, you see the way they behave, the behavior, external behavior seems to be erratic, weird, and sometimes you feel they are not okay. Something is wrong with them. So as we said, they are illegal or legal. When they are abused, it leads to a lot of harmful consequences. So, and the possession of drugs, such kind of illegal drugs, it is punishable under law. which Shilpavalli ma'am is going to talk about. What are the different laws which comes under this view. And when these drugs are prescribed by the doctor or because they are legal, like for example, painkillers or anxiolytics or cough syrups, these kind of substances, without the advice of doctor, person is consuming, it is considered as a drug abuse. And most of the survey studies indicate that, previously, I was talking about before 2010, the certain social segments like high risk groups, like commercial sex workers, transport workers, or street children, the drug abuse was more prevalent. But the recent statistics says that the student population at secondary higher or secondary level, they are more vulnerable and they're slipping into this drug abuse behaviors, and could be many factors. So that could be a peer influence or the distress factors. But there are a lot of new trends which has been observed last 5 years, I would say. The profiles have changed where people wanted something new in their life. The boosting performance is a key issue where the younger crowd, the well-off, educated urban men and women, they are inclined to using of these drugs. The motive is a recreational purpose, and age initiation also is reducing, declining. I would average it is 15, but we also see the cases from age 10 or 12 onwards. If you happen to see the recent Google news, the preschool child has taken alcohol to the his classmates and in the school, knowing that it is alcohol and it is something no, wrong. So that is the way we are going. And another article yesterday, it has come in one of the Telangana hostels, the party, the children of grade 10, they were partying by consuming alcohol without the knowledge of their warden. So you can understand, where, the initiation, the age is declining, constantly. And the new drugs, so because under, if you see the illicit drugs list, more than 100, drugs are being identified. So the more party drugs or the designer drugs or the metro drugs, whatever you call it, these are the synthetic chemicals and they're mind altering amphetamines that are rage in Asia, and India is being a major contributor here. And you see the new channels, it started, it is discovered in 2016 that via internet or courier, people started ordering drugs, and it is been in huge incidents during the pandemic period also. So India is now a hub of drugs which are sold through illegal internet pharmacies. The technology students are using their skills in purchasing this through the dark net. So that is where the NCB officials are also putting their interest on trying to trace down the IP servers and then take them into custody. And new users, you see that lot of MNC, the call centers, there is one of the studies talks about 27 of the person using drugs. It's not that usually we are conditioned, drug means heroin or ganja or cocaine, but these particular new users, it is a over counter drugs is more prevalence in this particular population. And some of the experts views, it is no more the cocaine and heroin are the things which we need to focus on, because people started cocktailing, mix and match of synthetic chemicals, and and it's not a rocket science, people are doing it in their homes itself. And again, one of the recent news articles, one of the PhD in chemistry, this guy got arrested because he was preparing drugs at his, one of the abandoned, pharmaceutical industry. So this misuse of pharma drugs is also high in range, because we see certain sect of, student population getting, relying on this painkiller, sedatives, anxiolytics. So all these things, medical community has this kind of a problem. So this is one of the MSJE official, former deputy director, has a view. All these studies done by this NIST, the department which look into this drug abuse problem in our country. And former chief de-addiction center Pratima Murthy ma'am, she was telling white collar addiction is coming out of the woodwork, and many young professionals are driven to drugs. It can be due to peer pressure, boredom. So these are the new fact. It's existing factors, but this become more common. We hear from the people who are abusing when we interview them, and that is where they can afford these kind of chemicals, and it is easily availability in the community, and that is making them abuse more and more. And this is where the former union minister, because they are trying to bring out the policy, they have brought out it has to be implemented by all the states. And synthetic drugs, as I said, UNODC also believes that it's no rocket science. You need not to wait for somebody to make it and sell it in the market. People with this kind of knowledge are making it in their own houses. So after this, I just want to, adolescent brain, because it's in a pruning stage, and up to 25 years, it's still under, I would say this word, under construction. It means it is still not well equipped with, it is still in a developmental stage. So at this point of time, when still it is developing, at the time, all these psychoactive substances which affect the brain, it affects all the functions of the brain. And we all know the functions of the brain: judgment, movement. That's where you see a person abusing drugs, the staggering gait, because they don't have a proper gait, they can't walk in a straight line, and there is an imbalance. Sensation, so people with ganja users, they have supersensory perception, so this sensation gets affected. Vision gets affected, acuity of vision gets affected. That is where they lead to a lot of accidents when they are under influence of substance. And there is a reward memory. This is very important thing they play. I'll come to that slide. And these centers also do get affected. Pain, they don't experience much pain. Once the effect of drugs wears off, that is where they start experiencing the pain. And the coordination is lacking. So that is where you see a person with the substance use. So here, the imbalanced adolescent brain, when we are talking about the emotional reactivity, you see a lot of adolescents have this, they are highly emotional, and they are heightened, emotional responses are heightened, and cognitive controls are immature. So this imbalance makes, the emotions take over the intelligence. And that is where we see a lot of crime also under influence of substance happening, the rage, assault, the murders, a lot of criminal activities under the intoxicated state. Because they we see a lot of cases when we interview their erratic behavior. It is more impulsive in nature, and because of the aggressive mood, they take the decisions which they repent later. So here we consider, addiction as a brain disease. Like any other disease, it is incurable, but it can be treated. Okay, so here you see the diseased brain, in a cocaine abuser, there is a decreased, metabolism if you see the abuser. So you need to understand what are the important functions of the brain, the way it works. All our cognitive functions like thinking, memory, learning, decision making, all these things are very important for us to survive and progress in our life and achieve something, whatever our goals. But this particular substances will affect this brain functions, and they hijack this brain functions. Like even, it mimics the normal functions of the brain, and it will take over all your brain functions, and it starts, we are under control of the drug. So no longer a person abusing drugs is control over his body and his mind or his behavior. So the way it receives, sends signals also will change once you start abusing drugs. Mean the communication gets affected. So then I was talking about the memory and rewards. So the reward circuit, we all know that, something which we like, we tend to repeat those behaviors. Because for example, you had some very nice kind of food in some food court, which you liked it very much. But next time, whenever you want to go outing, you start, your memory center, that particular experience is stored, and that is rewarded. It means you liked it. So the next activity, whenever you wanted to go somewhere out, the first thing comes to your mind is, let's go there and have that particular item of food. So this is a way. What happens is, because those activities are reinforced and it was giving pleasure, we tend to repeat them again and again. This is the same thing is happening with the drugs, because they are giving certain thing called pleasure, or it is decreasing the pain, or it is making us experience something. Like, for example, the hallucinogens, it makes you to think whatever you want to think. You imagine, you believe whatever you're thinking or seeing is right. So that makes you to do it again and again. That is what is a addiction and reward circuit. And here, eventually, once you start abusing in the journey of the drug abuse, what happens is, the things which we get reward naturally, like eating, hugging, kiss, sex, okay, whatever it is, it gives a natural reward. You start, that becomes shrink, to a certain extent, where the drug is overtaken that kind of experience. Means these particular activities are no longer pleasurable for me. I need something more, and that is getting from this particular abusing of the psychoactive substance. So the rewards which I used to get naturally are no more longer pleasurable for me. So talking to my child, or playing, or watching a favorite movie, nothing gives me pleasure than going to the substance or using substance. So this is the way it affects our pleasure circuit also. And if you see imaginary cloud, in that we all have certain important things in our life, like friends, school, exercise, name it, all the things which I have put in this. So slowly, once the substance come into this circle, what happens is, we start, losing, each aspect of important aspect of our life. Like, I no longer want to exercise. I no longer feel interested in work. I don't feel like talking to my family. I start avoiding my friends. I stop going to school. So this is the way it takes over, and then it continues further. Slowly, slowly, one of the important things in my life starts going away from the circle, and the substance is taking over. So the progression happens, and I get deep into the addiction part. This is where I'll end up, and nothing is important for me than using substance. You might have seen many people, because they suffer, they want to give up, but they are unable to give up. That is a phase they land up in. And what are the common reasons? There are three categories we can put in. One is pleasure. It always starts with pleasure, curiosity, experimenting, to have fun, to feel good. But it is combination with the pressure from the friends to use. It happens especially in the adolescent group. So, you don't want to do it, but you want to be part of that particular team. And, some people, even in the families, we see they encourage this pleasure and this pressure from the friends or talking, whoever, combination of it. When I have some problem situations in my life, it can be disappointments, frustrations, failures, anxiety. This happens in everyone's life. I didn't get proper marks, or my friend stopped talking to me, or it can be any reason, where I feel it's a problem situation, because problem is the way I perceive the situation for me. So these combination of these three factors will shape up my drug abuse behavior. And there are a lot of other contributing factors. It is like, this is given by, again, the UNODC. It's globally, the cultural values are changing. There is increased economic stress. The supporting bonds have been, changing. There is disintegration of old joint family system, where there is no vigilance on a child, and there is a parental love care in modern families. Every time we go and talk to the adolescents, the first thing is, my parents don't understand me, they don't care for me. And parents version is, whatever we are doing, working, is for them. So there is a kind of a communication issue there. So they feel that the way they give the love and the way the love is pursued by the child, there is something that is missing. There is no equation there. And there is a religious moral values. It's a debatable topic, but that is one of the reasons it is cited. And most of the time, lot of people, whoever are using drugs, they are trying to escape the hard realities of life. That shows the lack of coping skills, or the life skills are lacking. And that is where we are trying to focus in the adolescent population, where the education is not just merely gaining knowledge, but also it should be value based. And you should be able to survive in the world with, with these challenges, how to cope and come out of it. And 2010 post, because the globalization, lot of young people becoming financially independent. And I also remember, lot of MNCs offering, Wednesday, Thursday, Women's Day, where free alcohol is supplied. These are the passes given because they feel that, after hard work, everybody is bound to enjoy their life. But the way it is defined, it has changed a lot of people's lifestyle. And media influence, I would say that post, in this pandemic, OTT has a major influence. Today, I'm not going to talk about that part, but we are seeing a lot of darker side, because of the media influence. Different nature of the crimes have changed, and job at early age, as I said, post 2010, and high individuality. I still remember the personal space is a concept which students have been, using that, they don't want anybody to, they don't want to approach for help because that affects, the people think I'm a weak. And they don't want, this is where you start, getting into the mental health issues. And so eventually substance abuse is also one of the mental health issue. And globalization, I don't, I'm not here to against the Western culture, but the way we adapted certain things, we being very selective. So that is where the alcohol has become part of everybody's family here. And the symptoms, if we go, it is increased on. It means the substance which I start using, it is not sufficient. I have to use more and more to have the similar or same feeling. And there is loss of control, and there are withdrawals. If some person is not using the substance, they start experiencing certain physical cravings. That is where the crime again. We see a guy, 12-year-old who is addicted to this inhalants. He didn't get the substance because he has to purchase, that inhalant was like hardly 50 rupees. For that reason, he happened to, kill an old man, while he was going for a walk. He just slit his throat and took his ATM card, because he was unable to cope up with this particular craving. He immediately want to consume it, and he needs money for that because the family is not giving, or he exhausted. So that kind of nature of crimes we see, which is, meaningless. And there is a preoccupation all the time. A student, if he's using drugs, he's constant, when I have to use, how do I get money? So the whole concentration or attention is on that particular, or a thought process is related to the drug use. And this development of salience, it is like nothing gives me pleasure apart from a drug. Okay, all the pleasurable activities I give up, spending time with family, all my favorite sport, or watching TV or movie, or going out with friends. Nothing gives me pleasure other than drug. And pass outs, you do overdose, and you don't register certain events, whatever you have done. And this is another blackouts where a lot of crime was done. A person doesn't remember what he has done in that stage. So there are harmful health and hazardous consequences like drunken driving, meeting where people met with an accident. I still remember a few of the students, in the accident, one person lost his eye, and there is a head injury, landed up, partially paralytic. uh, Paralysis has come. So this kind of, we see the consequences, the health burden, physical health burden, mental health burden is high in this drug abuse cases. And I see that it starts with experimental or recreation use. That's the way the progression shifts to the occasional, where you create an occasion to use, and then it intensifies and becomes a regular use, and it becomes a compulsive use where you want to stop but you are unable to do it, and you completely physically and psychologically become dependent on it. Why I'm citing this risk factors for drug abuse is, if at all we identify this at an early phase, I think we can work on them in order, because these risk factors make us vulnerable to this particular problem. So the temperament, I don't know how to deal with my emotions in a positive way. Personality traits, certain we see that early signs of personality problems like hyperactive disorder, or or conduct disorders are there at early stage. These particular personality traits have a high risk of getting into substance use. Antisocial personality traits, so when you observe certain kind of those traits, probably that is where you need to start working on, not when the abuse starts. And family history of addiction, that also is a distress factor for a child, and the chances, even the hereditary factors are high. Availability in the community, that is where the law enforcement agency is working on. And negative family relations, so this is where you need to work on. And it is a collaborative effort. It's not that other person has to change. Both, if the issues are there, it has to be sorted out at the early before the damage is high. And negative self image also, so the low self esteem, the kind of negative self concept a person has, that is where it becomes one of the factors for them to get into this substance use. And there is abuse and neglect in the childhood also can be one of the risk factors. All these factors, they make it vulnerable for a person to get into the substance. If it is there, it has to be worked on. And protective factors, why I'm focusing on this is because once you identify these are there, you need to strengthen them, so that it becomes an immunity shield for you to such kind of issues. uh, Having a disciplined life and healthy lifestyle, proper diet, proper exercise, and you are able to express yourself. The communication is a key. One of the anti-drug day team, 2 years, they continuously made that as a theme, because you are unable to express yourself properly, you are unable to communicate your issues, your emotions. That is where the whole problem is. They found out that that is a root cause of most of this problems with the drug abuse. Mental well-being, you have to take care of your mental hygiene, positive coping skills. Every one of us have a lot of negative emotions we go through every day, but I have to learn how to manage them. And that is where I become a kind of a survivor of this, and start focusing on a positive aspect. And strengthening your self-esteem. So these are again a big major topics, but I'm just giving a hint. These are the protective factors you have to inculcate, so that you don't fall prey to this particular problem. And whoever is attending right now today, I want you to look into what are the good things about alcohol or drugs, what I gain from using and what I lose by using. So you get the answer. I don't want to say, oh, you use, you do a lot of losses you face, but you can weigh your pros and cons. You can make a decision today. Maybe I gain pleasure. Whatever you gain is a temporary. Let me tell you, be after 22 years of interacting with the clients and the families with substance use, I would say that the whatever, I wouldn't say you don't gain anything. That is where we have discussed about the reward circuit. You gain something, but it's all temporary, and what you lose is a permanent. So you need to look into in order to make a right decision today. Even if it is an early stage you are in, it is better to make a right decision by weighing pros and cons. Is it worth losing? Okay, how my losses are outweighing me? So look into that and make a decision about it. There are definitely not the individual effects, but the social effects. The drug abuse, it tears apart the family, friendship. We see the relationships are, you know, damaged to a great extent. Working on them is a very difficult task even for a therapist. Even with intervention, I wouldn't say everything is going to be reversible. So a lot of irreversible damages happens, in the drug abuse cases. And the people become isolated, they get financially strained, relationship becomes dysfunctional, and families, most of the families, they get dissolved because the main responsibility, respect, trust, all these will become affected, and it's very difficult for a person to regain all this relationship. And children especially, they become victims of any parent with substance use. They become emotionally distraught. It's not just a person who's abusing, but it is being passed on to the other family members. They also suffer mentally and emotionally, and their professional life, they get affected, that is job loss or absenteeism, inefficiency, because your cognitive abilities get affected. And you see the consequences, increased crime rate, the kind of crimes are becoming very different, especially the young girls. And I see that there are a lot of health burden, is lot of reproductive problems. I would say one of the example, one day I went to a local pub, I was writing one article on women's substance use. I saw a girl, totally knocked off at 8 p.m. And a group of boys and two girls are carrying her, and taking to the vehicle. So you can understand, you can imagine where they are going, why they are here, why she's in that particular state, and the clothing was something different. In a pub, definitely you know what is attire. So you can imagine that kind of cases. Many, we get women cases where repeated abortions are there. There is lot of, they start hating themselves because of that emotional trauma. They get into depression. It is the mental burden, health burden is high in women compared to the men. And this is where, they feel that it is better to drink or use drugs and die than live a normal life. So why you have to drag yourself to that particular state? So it is everywhere there is a crossroad and you can make a right choice. So here we see the human potential. Whatever I put it in red, we see that 50% of the youth in this country, that is where we look into that, growth of nation. If these kind, this particular population gets into this substance use, what is going to happen to the country? We are seeing recently our neighboring countries, how they are suffering. And imagine drug abuse like tentacles, it is, passing, in our communities. And what is going to happen if it continues, if we don't try and do something about it now? So the damage is not just physical, psychological, moral, intellectual. It's very high. The damage is high. That's what we are witnessing already. And mental illness is high. We see lot of young, students. It's not that they're cognitively challenged, 95 plus in 10th or inter or plus two, suddenly there is a decline in academically, they'll land up in asylums. So we can't do anything about it, because unless a person wants to change, as a professional, I really cannot help. Forcibly nothing we can do about it. Even the law enforcement agencies, the punishment they can give, but the change has to come within. So it is always better to look into the prevention aspects than once getting into this problem, how to get out of it, because the losses are high, and sometimes the changes are irreversible. And you also see there's 40% cases with HIV/AIDS. This is more rampant in northeastern states because of the IV drug abuse. And a lot of hepatitis and HIV cases we see because of the substance use. There is an indirect, uh, the indicator is risk sexual behavior, high risk sexual behaviors are there. And nowadays it has changed to to different level altogether. So this is something which we are witnessing again. And there is a domestic violence. You see a lot of cases, any Bharosa center or Sheetins, you go, the first and foremost thing, any conflict with a husband, there is a domestic violence and there is alcohol abuse or a drug abuse is one of the underlying factor. And yes, definitely the authorities are taking lot of measures, but it is a collaborative approach. That is where we are trying to build awareness. We are trying to educate people about the ill effects, and a lot of the rehabilitation centers are being set up by the government, and they are training. As I said, one of my role is a Nasha Mukt Bharat campaign resource person. So they are trying to train them, and they are trying to train the volunteers in order to reach out to the awareness campaigns. So there is a scheme under prevention of alcohol substance abuse, and a lot of counseling centers have been set up. So you need to have a directory of the things where to seek help. It is available, help is available, but at the early you take help, the more you're preventing yourself getting into the problem. And even the HRD sports and youth affairs, the ministries have been collaboratively working on this. And yeah, more awareness via curriculum, and they made it a mandatory in a school setting that they need to have a subject on drug abuse prevention, and strict vigilance on social networking sites is happening, and periodically we are doing national surveys. I would say that during pandemic, one of the surveys done by AIMS, the statistics, so the results say that it's more than 6,000 students have been affected with the drug abuse, or 5 states they have done the survey. So this is what is alarming for us, where we feel that it is very important that drug demand reduction has to become a public health policy. And yes, women treatment in the de-addiction centers, that is a challenging thing, but they are trying to achieve that through certain laws. And the prevention will be done at 3 levels. One is primary, like today what we are doing is education or sensitization of public through awareness programs. And secondary, whenever people with substance use, they are in early stage where they know they are getting into it, detection and prompt treatment through motivational counseling. They need not to get admitted in a rehabs or a psychiatric setups, but on OP basis they can treat themselves and get out of it. Tertiary level, where there is already a lot of damages, we are trying to limit the disability, arrest the disease, and trying to rehabilitate them to become a normal, healthy, or functional individual, at least in a society. And our aim is drug-free communities. It's not possible with one NGO or law enforcement agencies. We all need to come together in order to make our community drug-free. And I end my presentation with a quote: "Today well lived make every yesterday a memory of happiness, and every tomorrow a vision of hope." Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. And now I will hand over this to Shilpavalli ma'am, who is going to talk on legal implications of substance use. Shilpavalli ma'am.
Good morning, all. That was a nice presentation, Devika Garu,
Thank
as
you, ma'am.
usual. So, to basically start with the topic, drugs and youth. So, we should see that we all know that 15 to 25-year-olds, making up 1/5 of the population of the country, they carry the India's future with them. They will eventually determine the country's moral, political, and social fabric. But unfortunately, the epidemic of substance abuse in adolescents is increasing at such alarming rate in India. It is probably because of the changing cultural values, or fears, irrational competition in the fields of education, employment, standard of living, or growing economic burden on families because of blind run behind false notions of luxuries or uh, their meaning of high in life, or declining supportive bonds for adolescents in their transitional age. Now, with nuclear families where both the parents are also working, they are unable to give qualitative time to their kids, unable to teach or demonstrate importance and faith in moral values. No, then children most of the times look out of their homes for someone to share and express themselves, and this also sometimes leads them to involve in wrong peer groups. You know how important friends are for uh, youngsters. They value their opinion so much, they seek for their acceptance, and in that process, they even tend to get into habits which the peers uh, do. So, communication, interaction, understanding among family members is gradually reducing. And moreover, the modern education system, I should say, has posed a lot of pressure on the students. In such conditions, generally youngsters feel very alienated. They lose their wisdom. They want to get rid of their anxieties, tensions, which they're not able to share within the family, their depression, they're depressed, and all these ultimately show them the way to drugs and substance abuse. They believe that drugs make them forget these tensions and pressures and make them feel devoid of any troubles. They feel better in that numbness caused by the drugs than bearing any tension due to their practical lives. As to put simply, what Devika ma'am has told about drugs, basically drugs are any substance that can transform the mental activity of the consumer, even if taken in small quantity, because they are essentially chemicals that affect the central nervous system. So when taken as medicine, illicit drugs are effective because they are given with a certain dosage and with a certain method of administration. But when even these illicit drugs are consumed beyond the limit, they are dangerous. When, of course, these provide short term benefits of relief in terms of pain, but they wipe out the ability, the alertness, rationality, or logic from the user. Drug addiction hinders the assimilation of youth into the society. They withdraw themselves from the society, from the family, from the friends. So, it restrains them not only from the social life, but also from achieving their individual goals or dreams in life. It causes problems in family. It harms the rational functions of a person. It often leads to unsafe sexual behavior and also criminal behavior. In order to procure the drug, the youngsters would resort to crime, and also as an effect of drug abuse and the resultant psychological changes, people would resort to crime which they would not even think of when they are sober. Now, of all the consequences of drug abuse amongst youth, the most startling I find are losing the vitality of youth of our nation, sometimes or most of the times, leading even to suicides amongst the youth. The weakening family fabric and its effect on countries' economic, cultural, and social scenario. So, this is a kind of war that is being waged, I should say, by those who are instigating or who are pouring in drugs into our country as a mechanism, as a mode of attacking the base of our culture, the base of our development, the base, because these youth, only as I told in the initial speech, that they form the basic foundation. They are the future citizens of the country, and they have to be able to shape out in such a way that they emerge as responsible citizens, as as you must have seen in movies like Urta Punjab, how the certain countries around the world are using these drugs as a means of attacking our youth. So I would like to share a small presentation. Yeah, legal implications of substance abuse. This is what I would like to go through quickly. So as you know, there are traditional crimes which affect a particular individual. They could be a murder, a theft, or dacoity, or something like that. But there are certain crimes which are classified as socioeconomic crimes which affect the public at large. These include, big cheatings, like, you find these multi-level marketing cases, or you have seen in the common thing, people would relate to the agri-gold cheating which has happened, or the recent Amway where it was booked by ED. No, these are all cheatings which affect public at large. There is smuggling, there is illicit trafficking, and amongst all these, drugs is something, or trafficking in drugs is something which affects the entire society, has a large scale effect on the society. So these are more organized and encompasses an entire cartel which operates, in such tight network, and we have to curb this menace. Only then the illicit trafficking in drugs, which it spans across the world, and is, as you read, it is only second only to illegal arms trade, and it is spreading its tentacles even through the dark net, and is and it can be controlled only with a very strict regime, with a strict legal regime. And for this, I should tell you that there were certain acts prior to the NDPS Act, like the Opium Act 1857, or the Dangerous Drugs Act 1930, which were very much inadequate to deal with the increasing menace of drug trafficking. So, in pursuance of being signatories to the international conventions, India has also uh, enacted this Narcotic Drugs and Psychotropic Substances Act 1985, which constitutes the basic statutory framework for drug law enforcement in our country. It lists out nearly 110 psychotropic substances. We might, in a regular day-to-day parlance, only here probably 10 to 15 names, but this act lists out 110 such substances. Then you can also see that the salient feature of the act is that generally in the Indian criminal jurisprudence system, the accused is considered innocent until proven guilty. But in NDPS Act, the accused is guilty until proven innocent. So the onus of proving innocence is on the accused. Generally, it is on the police and the prosecution to prove that a person who is termed as accused is guilty of an offense. But in this act, it is the onus of the accused himself that he has to prove his innocence. So the police, when uh, books somebody in this act, when the prosecution proceeds with the prosecution on the accused, it is the onus of the accused to prove his innocence. So this is one very salient feature of this act. And the quantum of punishment is described in terms of the quantity of drugs possessed by the accused. So if you see that, uh, the punishment prescribed by the NDPS Act is where the contravention involves small quantity, that is less than 1 kg, with rigorous imprisonment for a term which may extend to 6 months, or with fine which may extend to 10,000, or with both. Now, where the contravention involves quantity lesser than commercial quantity but greater than the small quantity, the punishment prescribed is rigorous imprisonment for a term which may extend to 10 years, with fine which may extend to 1 lakh. Where the contravention involves commercial quantity with rigorous imprisonment for a term which is not less than 10 years, but may extend to 20 years and shall also be liable to fine, which shall not be less than 1 lakh, but which may extend to 2 lakhs. Of course, you might find the fine amount very less, very nominal these days as per today's standards. But the amount of rigorous imprisonment for years together is definitely a strict provision given in this act. And there was an amendment made in 1988 where through section 31A death penalty was also introduced, and there is another section introduced in general. We have the constitutional provision of suspension, remission, or commutation of a punishment award by this. We have this provision in the CRPC where if an accused is awarded with a sentence, he can appeal, he can apply for suspension of the sentence or remission or commutation of the offense. But through this provision of 32A, it has been provided that no sentence awarded under this act, other than the section 27, of course, no sentence can be suspended or remitted. This is another very strict provision that has been incorporated in this act. Now there is also provision for constitution of special courts, so that the trial of these cases is done at an expeditious in an expeditious manner, so that the culprits, the offenders, are taken to task immediately and they do not indulge in further crime. I will quickly run through the sections only to let you know what all are prohibited or what all are incorporated in the Act. So the penal sections of the Act prohibits the cultivation or production, manufacture, distribution, including warehousing, transport, purchasing, and selling of the prohibited drugs and psychotropic substances. Even financing and harboring such offenders is an offense under the Act. Now, whoever is an owner or occupier of a house or of a premises or a transport or a means of conveyance, if he knowingly permits his premises or means of conveyance to be used for the commission of an offense, he shall also be punishable with the same punishment provided for the offense. Now, this section 27 is one which I was mentioning earlier, where punishment is for consumption of narcotic drug or psychotropic substance. So whoever is booked under this section for consuming the drug, the rigorous imprisonment for a term which may extend to 1 year, or with fine which may extend to 20,000 rupees, or with both, is the prescribed punishment. Now there are various other sections which say that, as I have already told you, the financing, the illicit trafficking of drugs and harboring the offenders will attract the same punishment as is prescribed for commercial quantity. Somebody who attempts to commit offense is also considered to have committed the offense, and the punishment is the same as for the offense. Punishment for abetment and criminal conspiracy. This is one very technically beautiful section that has been incorporated in this act, where I would like to warn the parents in here or whoever is watching. See, generally our tendency is to say that whenever the kids are in a group of friends, they go to a pub or some place and they consume something, and we always feel that our kids are right and they don't take all such, and the police have wrongly implicated them. So general logic that is derived from this section 29 is, when you are manki telugulo oka sameta untundi, if you're all good with it, తాటి చెట్టు కింద కూర్చుని మజ్జిగ తాగితే అది ఎవరు నమ్మరు. So even this also applies to the same, in the same manner. Say You are in a company of group of persons who are taking drugs, and you say you are innocent. It doesn't work out with because of this section 29. They can be booked under the punishment for abetment and criminal conspiracy. So you know very well that the other group of people are taking something which is not legal, which is a substance which is not supposed to be taken. It is your responsibility to either get out of there or to inform somebody responsible. And otherwise, if you're sitting there silent, if you're sitting there silent, watching them, if you're sitting there enjoying the company of such people, it amounts to abetment and criminal conspiracy. Though generally police don't use this as a matter of rule, but I'm warning that this can be used in such circumstances. And the pretext of just giving company cannot be an excuse then. So that is why we have to be wary of the kind of company our kids keep. And you should see there is the preparation for commission of the offense is also same as for the offense. And of course, there is enhanced punishment for every uh, uh, offense that is committed after conviction. You can see here section 35 where I was mentioning earlier. There is the presumption of culpable mental state. That is, the accused is presumed to have that culpable mental state. That is, he has that mental state where he knows that he is committing the offense. So the provisions for bail are also very stringent as per the act. And this is another another section where the authorities authorized by the central government or the state government are given with the power of entry, search, seizure, and arrest without warrant or authorization. This is a extraordinary power bestowed on the enforcing authorities through this act, where if the any officer has reason to believe that there is I mean any commission of offense punishable under this act. So even with such information which is written down, they have the authority to enter, search, seize, and arrest without warrant. So this is the beauty of this provision, which gives a lot of power to the enforcing authorities. And there is also the power of seizure and arrest in public place. So you find sometimes vehicle checkings going on, you find sometimes people being frisked at public places. These are the powers which are derived from these sections of law. Now, there is also another section which says the protection of action taken in good faith. So no suit, prosecution, or legal proceeding shall lie against such officer authorized by the government when he is believed to have done anything under this act in good faith. So these provisions of the NDPS are understandably very strict and imperative to curb the drug menace. The repercussions of involvement in NDPS acts is for the youngsters especially. The drug use, when the youngster is booked under this act, it leaves a criminal record. It makes his life very tough going ahead, unless, of course, there is a provision in the act where if he confesses, he he accepts his guilt, and he is ready to get rehabilitated, his plea is considered. But otherwise the criminal record remains, and his chances of employment, and the uh, time that he has to spend in the jail, all these are big uh, blots on his personal record, on his academic record, on his employment record. All these maybe they just start with for fun, for maybe one time, but once they get into the notice of the police, these are the hard facts that they have to face throughout their life. Make wise choices, opt sports and not snorts, and we have only one life, only one chance, and we have to avoid drugs. And in this regard, I would also like to end stating that Cyberabad Commissioner has started an initiative of forming anti-drug abuse committees in schools and colleges, and with the active support of Devika Garu, we have been conducting several awareness sessions in several colleges and schools, and the program is going on, and we would be happy if anybody from the viewers invite us also to conduct such sessions in their organizations or colleges or schools or communities as well. Thank you. Thank you, one and all. Now open for questions.
Thank you, Shilpavalli ma'am and Devika ma'am. That was such an enlightening session. We'll take questions from the chat box. And also, if you want to, you can use the raise hand options if you want to ask the question in person. There is a question here. Mr. Hemant asked, we have noticed in states ordering areas, the drugs are much prevalent. Police sometimes are unable to do much in such conditions. I'm talking in context of hills region of Uttarakhand, Himachal Pradesh. Is there any special cell where we can report so that authorities take the steps? Which organization can be helpful to fight for drugs, and how can we together go within that timeline?
So as far as the helpline number is concerned, in Cyberabad Commissionerate, we have opened a drug abuse prevention and control helpline, that is 9492099100. So you can call on this number and give us information on any suspicious drug use, anyone supplying drugs, anyone asking for drugs, any place where there is such drug abuse happening, or even report some initial or users, so that counselors like psychiatrists like Devika ma'am can reach out to them and help them.
People are saying that thank you for the valuable information. Ms. Shilpa says, for parents of young school going children, what is the key advice for prevention as part of parenting?
Basically, I was also emphasizing more on communicating and being vigilant. What is happening with your child, and you have our initial indicators. I was talking about the personality factors. If you see the child not being attentive, hyperactive, and unable to focus, and slowly withdrawing from the family, especially the adolescent, you see there is a lot of secrecy maintained by the child. These are the initial indicators where you need to be vigilant, and then try. And most of the time I see the parent community start being punitive and controlling attitude. That is where you are losing your child. You need to communicate, and you have to be the first friend. How to establish that relation. I think you are the best person to know than me trying to say. So you see, all of us are trying to do our best to kids, but eventually we fail to understand that we don't treat them parallelly. Rather, we try to become more punitive whenever there is a problem situation happens. And spend a lot of quality time with your kids, and see that it has to start from the beginning, not after you encounter such kind of problems. Already you have lost the child, the kind of your relationship with the child, and then you start trying to do it, takes a lot of time. So have from the childhood, have that kind of the relation. However you do good parenting, still there are a lot of external influences playing a role in shaping up your child's behavior. So see where his environment, what are his kinds of friends, try and understand, not as an authoritative figure, but as a friend. So that helps you to try to curb the problem or identify the problem at the early stage, and then you can do something intervention. And most of the parents, I also see that they deny the problem. So knowing that, you still try and cover up, and then try to blame the external situations and the people, and especially within the family there are a lot of conflicts. Each parent start trying to put that responsibility on other. This is what the child will take advantages, because not all people are united on one stand they are taking on this particular issue. So these are some of the things which you start doing. And any behavior changes you see, you know your child, because you have been taking care of the child from since the time of birth. So see that any changes which is alarming, please be alert and then try and do something. A lot of help is available outside, so there is no stigma associated. Please reach out at the earliest than reaching out when it's out of your hands. That's what I want to say. And you can connect with me more, if you have more queries on this.
I hope that really answered so well Ms. Shilpa's question. Ms. Ansari is asking why we are not closing lounges or bar for youth. If
Bars are definitely closed for youth. They are not allowed to enter. Minors are not allowed to enter the bars. There is always a strict enforcement or whistle on such places, and whichever are allowed, whichever are allowing minors to enter, anything of such irregularity comes to our notice, we take strict action on them. We write to the government for the closure of such places. You can also bring such instances to our notice so that we can take action on them. Closing them as such is not a solution. It's a cosmopolitan city. We have a lot of IT culture here. We are trying to catch up with the standards, not only just in terms of uh, technical skills or development, but also it also includes when people from all states, all countries come and stay here. They also look for some kind of uh, places where they can also assimilate. So when we are talking about taking Telangana or Hyderabad to such a level, there should be also scope for such places, but they should run under strict regulation and with all restrictions that the government has placed on them. It doesn't mean that there is an unregulated entry into these places, or there can be a blind imitation of Western culture where people of all ages probably go to the bars and restaurants. So there is always uh, a kind of option from our side also to restrict ourselves and our kids from going such places, because we see at some places parents themselves take kids along with them to such places, and what is that we are teaching them?
Ms. Zenobia is asking, are there any films or audio visuals to be shown in schools which might deter children?
Yeah, so there are plenty on the YouTube. We are also in the process of making few. We are also opened up a short film competition on this aspect. Once we get good results from them, we'll also circulate them on our Cyberabad Commission's YouTube channel.
Ms. Renu Singhal is continuing that question. She adds, what are other ways to prevent college students getting involved with drugs?
People are into drugs, I mean, especially college students, with a kind of, excitement or curiosity or peer pressure. So when we channel their energies, when we channel their curiosity in the right direction, we can always engage them in right activities. Like earlier we used to have a lot of cultural festivities, then a lot of activities where students are engaged. But these days mostly it is always study and exams, studies, exams, that is it. All other activities are considered waste of time, or waste of effort on the part of the institutions. Institutions must also take this up, that they engage students in other activities, sports especially, which can channel their energies in a right manner. Sports, their hobbies like music or reading. We don't find libraries these days, and we don't find students studying in libraries these days, and we don't even have some probably schools or colleges which have a library. So we should also see what are the institutional setup that we are providing in the colleges rightly. Anything Devika ma'am can add?
Also, right now with Cyberabad Commissionerate, we are starting this youth-free drug clubs because we are making the students also stakeholders. That is very much required, and this kind of talks, the educating or sensitizing about these issues. And I was also talking about the life skills. See, what are the underlying reasons anybody would get into these kind of problems? So educating them would prevent at least certain percentage of people getting into this problem. So it's not just the NGO or the law enforcement agencies or like right now Wishwa, me and we three are trying to work on this, but it has to be everybody's responsibility because it's ultimately what we are looking at drug free community. So as you need to focus on the positive intervention as ma'am said, and also look into that, how you can make students as stakeholders in this mission. So that would help, yeah, that way.
I think that answers both Ms. Ansari's questions and Shilpaji's questions. Um, Ms. Vandana says, colleges or schools where students are doing this, why can blood tests be done annually by schools to find the students are taking, as these things are done secretly?
Yeah, this is something which the colleges or the institutions have to take up as a part of their anti-drug abuse policy. We are also trying to educate on this through our anti-drug committees, anti-drug abuse committees. Like at the time of admission, sensitizing the parents and the students about the uh, substance abuse and probable measures that can be taken by the institutions like these blood tests. There can be random checks, there can be surprise tests that can be done, there can be checks on those students who come late at night to the hostel. Yes, but this has to be taken up by the institution, and we are trying to stress this upon a point with these institutions as well.
So we are discussing about the social causes and how we are dealing with these issues. I would like to talk about Wishwa. So Wishwa is an online platform for everyday change makers and social champions. It's a crowdfunding and crowdsourcing platform that is aimed at helping anyone find the support they need in their efforts to solve problems for themselves and for others, and in the process make the world a better place. We would like to thank British Biologicals for supporting our fundraiser with Roshni Trust for Psychiatry at Your Doorstep, and also thank a very generous, kind individual who funded and helped a girl student with cerebral palsy with an electrical tricycle. This is what Wishwa stands for, where we as a community bring the change. There is a problem, I want to highlight a problem that around 128 girl students are facing in Telangana, and we believe we as a community can definitely help them. Totapalli Zila Parishad High School is located in the Kalvakurti Mandal of Nagarkurnool district. The school has a total strength of 226 students, of whom 128 are girls. They lack a proper covered hygienic toilets. The girl students have to go to neighbors' houses to use the toilet, and it is even more challenging to come to school during the difficult days of the month. Their studies are getting impacted and education is at risk due to the lack of toilets. Is this fair for any student? To address this issue, Totapalli School is raising funds to build new girl toilets. Please donate to their fundraiser and help them solve this problem. Even one donation can go a long way. Please donate so that this problem can be rectified and ensure that something as basic as this does not rob these girls of the bright futures they deserve. There are other such NGOs that Wishwa is supporting, like Bal Vikas, who is raising funds to seek support to sponsor the salary of hearing impaired children teachers. Vruda Abhaya Trust that help to provide nutritious meal to the elderly. Network of Telangana People helps children living with HIV/AIDS and has been providing nutritious food to 100 such children every month. They are looking for your help to support them in achieving and increasing their goals. So please contribute a little to help NTP take care of these kids and help them a future and reduce the struggles they have to face in their lives. We are also proud to announce material vertical that we have launched. It gives us great pleasure to announce that we have launched a materials vertical on Wishwa.org in addition to the fundraisers. This vertical further enhances Wishwa platform by bridging the gap between people who donate materials and those who can use these materials. Donors can list their items such as clothes, books, electronics, furnitures on the website, and they wish to give away for free. And those who want to receive the items can browse for them and request them. We are looking to end the stigma of using the used items. So I request you to please look around your house this weekend for things that you no longer need and list them for free on Wishwa.org. They might be of great use to someone else, especially someone who needs them but cannot afford to buy them. We also welcome social champions of change, a community of individuals that want to make the world a better place. Join Wishwa community, be the Wishwa social champion of change today. I thank Shilpavalli ma'am and Devika ma'am and Roshni Trust for organizing such an important event to educate the youth, educate parents, teachers, and the society as a whole, so that we together can deal with this issue. Thank you so much, Shilpavalli ma'am, for taking your time out, giving us your time, and Devika ma'am, thank you so much for such enlightening topic.
Thank you.